Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright. Right over there is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, Pete Wright. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
We are talking about our negative spiral, the shame spiral.
Kind of.
Oh, kind of. Okay.
I mean, that's sort of what we're avoiding, but we really want to talk about strengths.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Look at you. You spun me already.
I know, right?
I know.
I'm good at that.
How quickly that happened. Before we dig in and I get spun some more, head over to takecontroladhd.com. Get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to our mailing list and ensure that you get an email each time a new episode is released. Connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at Take Control ADHD and call us 503-664-4ADD to get your thoughts on the show. And of course, thank you to everybody who has done so already, or those of you considering doing so. Check us out at patreon.com/the ADHD podcast, where you can support the show and get some perks. We sure love having you over there. Thank you so much. Okay, we've got our guests are back. Gabriel Villarreal and Heather Clift, hosts of the Informed Consent podcasts. They are back to join us for this conversation. You may recognize them from this very show a couple of weeks ago. We sure love talking about this stuff then, and we're really excited to talk about this stuff now. Heather and Gabriel, welcome back to the ADHD podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us back.
So as I was telling Pete, it's not so much about shame or negativity that I want to emphasize. I want to emphasize on the strengths of ADHD, because one of the things that you said, Gabriel, in our show last is you really talked about how ADHD was a strength in your eyes, and that's how you saw it. And I just would love for you to share what you mean by that and how you get there and what you teach your clients and any information that you can give to our listeners about ADHD and strengths. I want to hear it.
Yeah, so we've been on the podcast before. You guys know that I have a podcast. I have a part-time job doing community mental health stuff. I have a part-time private practice, ADHD counseling in the Roanoke Valley, where I specialize in, obviously, ADHD. And I own and coach at my gym, Lost Boys Strength and Conditioning. And I 100% believe that none of that would be possible without my ADHD. And the joke that I kind of throw out there is my workouts and my regular 9 to 5 alone would just crush a normal person. Let alone coming home and working on either one of my businesses, and also successfully having a marriage. That probably wouldn't work out either. But I'm able to juggle all these things. And that's, I couldn't do it without my ADHD. So if there was ever a question of whether or not ADHD can be a strength, feel free to just play that clip over again for that person that doesn't believe that. And that should be enough to convince them.
How do you do it?
Yeah, right. Well, and that's a question. Was it always that way for you, Gabriel? Did you, or what did it take to get you into that particular headspace?
So no, not really. No, I didn't always juggle this many things at the same time. And it wasn't until I started Lost Boys Strength and Conditioning, my gym, that I really, I had a very good business mentor and friend who sat me down one day and said, you know enough about strength and conditioning to help anyone for 12 months. So now that you've opened this gym, for the next 12 months, you need to learn about business and stop trying to consume all of the strength and conditioning science that's out there. You know enough. And when I started doing that, I realized that that an entrepreneur lifestyle is the ideal lifestyle for the ADHDer, because they are free to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, in a manner that works best for them. And all of the highest level entrepreneurs, they only do the things that they're good at. So they aren't gonna handle, in the beginning they will, but once they get to a higher level, they're not, as a simple example, they may not even edit their own podcast. Like you guys have podcasts, I edit our podcast. But if I was, in probably 5 years, I probably won't be editing my own podcast, because it takes a lot out of me. It's cumbersome. It can be irritating. I can get frustrated, and my time is better served doing the things that I'm really, really good at. And if I'm only doing the things that I'm really, really good at, I'm providing value for the people that I'm interacting with. I'm changing their lives more. And then I'm always happy because I'm never doing things that I don't want to do or I don't like to do or that I'm not good at. So that's kind of shaped my whole outlook on just do the things that you're good at and, outsource or get help doing the things that you're bad at. A big example of the things that I'm bad at is like any finances for any of the businesses that I have. Me and my wife sit down and I'm like, we're going to go at this for 15 minutes and then we're going to take a break because after 15 minutes, I'm going to get angry and throw something and just freak out because this is really, really stressful for me and I can't conceptualize it. And I just know that about myself. So I don't actively put myself in a position where I'm not going to, be awesome.
Gabriel, it's weird that I feel like you're, what's the word? You're me. Like everything you're describing is like you are my twin, man. That is amazing. I get mad and throw stuff too.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Actually, it's been a really long disclaimer. It's been a really long time since I threw anything, or got like really, really upset. But
that's because you're playing on your strengths, right?
Yeah, no, exactly right. It's like, all right, if I'm getting this, I'll give you an example. So I was going through a business like boot camp, as it were, and we got to the whole module on finances. And this was a couple months ago. So this same verve I had, and I opened it up. I opened the Excel spreadsheet while I'm following along with the video. I looked at the Excel spreadsheet, and literally all of the anxiety and frustration from high school and college math classes just rushed back. And I could immediately feel my heart rate go up. I could immediately feel anger coming up. I just closed my laptop and I was like, that's for another day. And I need to have someone around me to help get me through that. Because that's not my unique genius. That's not my mode of genius at all. And so why waste time trying to trudge through that? I got other things that I need to do that I'm really good at. And that will make other people happier than forcing myself to do something that I'm not good at.
How did you figure out what your strengths were? And the reason I ask that is that it's not always easy for people. Like if you ask that question, like, what are your strengths? I think a lot of people would kind of freeze. They don't really know. So any advice on how to kind of figure that out?
I always like to take people back to a time where they felt like they rocked it. Sometime where they feel like they really had it together. Things went really well. And that can be hard to pinpoint. So you might have to spend a little time digging around. And then you look at what was going on at that time. What was your responsibility? Was anybody else involved? What was their responsibility? What time of year was it? What time of day was it? Where were you located? What were the personalities around you, kind of thing. So in what environments do you thrive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm big on what I call positioning. And I think in our last podcast, I gave the example of Superman. Superman's not Superman under a red sun. He's just like a normal dude, like you or I. But when you put him under a yellow sun, he's Superman. He can fly. He's super strong, and all that jazz. So where are you? We can use this. Where are you? Where can you fly? I mean, realistically, where do you find yourself really getting into that hyper-focused state and really feeling productive? And that may be a clue what you're really, really good at. So for me, I really got into like flow states or hyper-focused states when I played soccer growing up. So I knew that kind of physical activity was really, really good for me. And when I think I shared this in the last podcast, when I was in college going over psychology and stuff, and then even in my master's, time would just fly by while I was learning this stuff. So that was a clear indicator that I'm really good at this stuff and I really like this stuff because I can get into this hyper-focused state. Now, of course, we can't argue that and I do it too, where it's like, all right, I'm going to do this last thing, and then you kind of come out of that hyper-focused state, and it's 3 hours later, and you got that thing done, and you got a whole bunch of other things that don't really matter, and you didn't really need to get done. So there is kind of a fine line. So I think the key is, where are you most productive? And when I was building
right?
yeah, absolutely. when I was building Lost Boys in my practice, my wife worked 3 12s on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so I knew that was my go time. I would, for a whole year almost, for those 36 plus hours, I just worked on that stuff. And it was very clear, like, I'm really good at this stuff. If I can just hone in from the time that she leaves to the time that she gets home for 12 hours, I can really make something of these businesses and things like that. And that's what I did and do. But in terms of finding other people's strengths, if they've never had that hyper focus or they've never had those flow state experiences, I just use the Vanderbilt and just say, like, we're going to take the Vanderbilt, whatever this says that you suck at, we can flip it and make them all strengths. So you can't sit still and you're really hyper. How often do you work out? How often do you exercise? Let's go do that. And then even flipping it and saying, you're still going to be like this when you're 60, 70, 80 years old. And that's an awesome thing, because the 60, 70, 80-year-olds that I see don't get off the couch, like, at all. And if they do, they're not moving very well or very fast. And what kind of life is that?
Look at it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of quality of life is that? But if you can't sit still, you're always going to move. That's going to be wonderful as you get older and older and older again. So that's, take a Vanderbilt and flip whatever it is you have.
So really try to identify what those strengths are, look at what you're passionate about, what you're hyper-focusing on. And what I'm also hearing, and I know this is why Pete's saying you're me, is choosing a profession and a job that fits you is obviously going to be a big deal, because we spend so much time at work.
Yeah, life's too short to be miserable at really crappy jobs. So, I mean, do what you love. And I mean, I say that, and I'll preface it by saying, like, I love what I do, but I worked every weekend from Friday till Sunday night straight for like 12 to 16 months to build what I have right now, to kind of get me here. So this isn't one of those things where it's like, find what you love and then quit your job, and like, to everyone else, they can just, deal with it and you're going to be super successful. It's like, no, man, you got to work for this lifestyle. You have to work for the privilege to continuously put yourself under that yellow sun. It's not a wake up one morning and I'm gonna do it type of a thing.
So what I'm hearing you say is we don't want to be impulsive and go into our jobs tomorrow and say, I quit, without having the work put into it and really a plan on what you're going to do next.
Yeah, that's not...
And we don't want to be irresponsible.
Yeah, no.
No, especially not as parents and spouses and all of those things that we are, yeah.
It's tough because I have a person I'm working with right now who is really miserable in their job, and trying to navigate that water, that ocean of what to do and how to do it and when are you comfortable. I'm just curious from your guys' standpoint, when you do have a client that comes in and you can tell that part of the job is what's making them miserable because it's not supporting their ADHD, it's not supporting their happiness, ADHD or not, they're just not happy. What do you say? How do you help them in that regard?
What would you be doing? What hours would you work? What setting would you work in, kind of thing? And just kind of walking yourself through that would look like, because that can really bring up for you, what are the options? Here's what you would like to have, a job that works mostly in the evening. So what are the options in this area for you to do that if you don't want to move, or moving is not okay, and then who would be around when you're doing that? And that kind of gives you an idea about what type of work setting you're drawn to and that would work better for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I totally forgot about that exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It's the perfect day exercise. Totally good job, Heather. That's why Heather's here.
Good job. We're all doing a great job.
Yeah. So no, I completely forgot, but I remember I've done that exercise 3 times since 2013. It's looked a little different every time, but every time that I've done it, I've gotten closer and closer to it. And I think it's a really good idea, especially if maybe you have a friend or a spouse or a client that you can kind of see, like, man, maybe they're not really happy in this job, but they're not either ready to admit it or they don't know that they're unhappy yet. That would be a really good exercise to have them do, to really say, oh, this is what I really want, and then have a conversation of, how are you going to get there? And not how are you going to get there tomorrow? How are you going to get there over the next 12 months? And then what are the next 24 months going to look like? And that can be overwhelming to the ADHDer, but I think it's let's just do a little bit, or let's keep that vision alive. That way, maybe even subconsciously, we can work towards getting us there. But I think what I also say to my clients that are unhappy in their job situations is, what are you doing when you're not at work? Are you just coming home and watching TV for, the other 8 hours of your day before you go to bed for 8 hours? Like, is that all you're doing? Well, that's probably contributing to how unhappy you are. Like, what is your creativity outlet? What is your passion? And that may lead to this lifestyle that we talked about. So if you're really, we'll take me for an example. If you're really passionate about strength and conditioning, when you're not working, are you consuming that kind of information, that knowledge? Because it's not going to be boring to you if you really, really enjoy it. If you looked at my Audible account and my Stitcher account, I probably have 2 separate master's degrees in business and in strength and conditioning because of the amount of information that I've consumed over these last couple of years. So it's not something that you can just kind of flip on and go. You need to put in the time and just kind of experiment. What really lights your fire? What really kind of interests you? And maybe you can make it into a job or into a career that supports this lifestyle. But maybe you just fill your other 8 hours with awesome stuff that you really, really like, instead of just watching TV and sitting down for, all of that time.
I want to just a reminder of folks. We talked about that the ideal week schedule. Nikki, you remember that? It was a long time ago.
Yeah, we did, and actually afterwards, I took out my calendar and I did my own ideal week. Mm-hmm.
I still live by that, and one of the things I did at the time was that I went into my calendar on my computer and I turned off all the calendars that I have. You have multiple calendars and colors and things like that, and I have my main primary calendar, and I'm also subscribed to my wife's calendar, my kids' calendars. I turned all of those off. So it's just a blank slate. And I created a new calendar after I went through this exercise. And I just put every minute scheduled in a nice, vibrant yellow, right? And that, so I can see, this is what time I'm going to sleep every night. And this is what time I'm going to ideally wake up. And this is when I'm going to have personal time. This is when I'm going to eat lunch. This is when I'm going to work out. This is when I'm going to work. These are my personal projects. I just put everything on there as if I was, I could just wake up Monday morning and trash everything I was doing and start living my ideal week on Monday morning. And then I turned back on my calendar, and it is enormously empowering when you see yourself, just that visual cue, that indicator, that reminder that you have this ideal, and you can start massaging your sort of real world into that ideal once you have the visibility of it. And that, it's been years now that I've had this calendar. I hide it most of the time now, but when I need a pick-me-up, I just turn that on and look at the overlay of what I'm really doing in my life compared to what I want to do or my ideal. And it goes a long way to getting out of that spiral when you realize, I'm really pretty close. That's, I'm pretty close, or I'm moving in that direction, or I'm making a decision for tomorrow that moves me one step closer to that ideal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and something I want to say about what Gabriel said, what I like about your response to, okay, well, maybe it's not going to happen tomorrow where you get this new job, but you're going to be researching and you're going to be looking at what you're doing outside of this job and what are your strengths? What are you passionate about? But what I specifically want to point out is that when you're looking for those things and you're starting to look outside of your current job, it's giving you hope. It's giving you a place where you're not stuck anymore. Like I'm actually now taking some action to take myself out of this stuckiness, which I know is not a word, but I love it anyway.
Just commit. It's a word
I'm
now.
Committing to it.
Yeah.
But you're empowering yourself to know that you can take action and you're not stuck anymore. And there isn't a deadline that this has to happen this week or next month. And as you said, Gabriel, you have to work at it. I mean, this, especially if you are going to be an entrepreneur or you're starting a new business, there's no doubt. We all know this, that takes work, perseverance, some failures that you're going to have to, like, you know, if you were a dog, your tail would be going underneath. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that goes into that. But I just love the fact that there's hope. You don't have to stay here. And look at your options. Look at your options and what's possible.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful for your listeners to know that, like, I'm not there yet. Like, I talk about this stuff, but I still have a part-time community mental health job that's, you know, not always the greatest thing ever. And I still have to be there to support my family. So it's a journey, you know, but if you can kind of get step by step closer to that thing, then eventually you'll gain momentum, and it's like, oh, well, I actually am almost there. Like Pete said, I'm really close to what I want, what I need. So yeah.
Great. Very inspirational. Thank you, guys. This is great. I love this conversation.
Well, and I'm kind of a list person, so I like to see things written out in front of me. So I always like to pick like 2 or 3 things that I'm going to do this week that either moves me forward, or they're just things that I haven't been able to do that I really want to get in there that feel good to me. And then as I do them, I mark them off so that I feel like, hey, you know, it just kind of bumps up your confidence a little bit that, yeah, I can do this.
Yes. There is a Steve Jobs quote, and I'm going to completely mess it up because I don't have it in front of me. But the point of it is go to bed, you know, doing at least one thing towards your goal. So, you know, you wake up in the morning, you have goals, you do one thing, you go to bed knowing you at least did one thing. And I know I'm messing it up completely, but it has always resonated with me ever since I saw it, because I just think if you can just do one thing, no matter how small it is, that just keeps you moving forward. And whether it's a list that you have in front of you or some kind of, you know, we've talked about vision boards before, how important those can be. Having that stuff in front of you is that reminder that it's important. And with ADHD, it's too easy to forget. It's too easy to get distracted and go into, unfortunately, that shame spiral that we started to kind of talk about that I want to avoid. But I think having those reminders around us is really important.
Huge.
Yeah, I'd like to add, 3 things, and let's see if I can keep them all in my head.
Yeah, shame, about 5 minutes.
Yeah, shame spiral.
And he has no list.
I have no list. Shame spiral. What I want to say about that is that's more about either fear of failure or that you have failed. And coming from an entrepreneur, you need to fail. You need to fail every day. If you fail, then that is more data for you to figure out how to be more successful later on. Let's shift this mindset and find your failures every day, and then ask yourself, how do I avoid that next time? And if you, I think I heard Tony Robbins on Instagram say, how many times would you let your baby, your infant baby, fall before you picked them up and said, nah, walking's not for you. You can't do it. Don't worry about it. That would never happen. So, apply that same, So apply that same mentality to your passions and your lifestyle design. Speaking of lifestyle design, Heather said that we do have an ebook all about mapping out your goals we launched it 2017. I think maybe 2 people downloaded it. But it's really nice.
Hey, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Put it in the show notes. It's like a couple pages, but it kind of walks everyone through it's fill in the blank perfect day type of a thing. And I know I've done it. And it kind of helps get everything under in order. So lists. Yeah. Number 3, I got them all. These things of getting closer and closer to what your goal is all just reps. And I'll use the strength and conditioning metaphor. If you were you wanted to be a powerlifter and you need to go to a competition to become a powerlifter, and you knew you had to squat 400 or 500 pounds, you wouldn't wake up day of, get under the bar and say, let's take this for a ride. There's no situation where that works out. So you 3 years before, you find a barbell, you find a gym, and you squat just the barbell. And then maybe the next week you add 5 pounds, and then you squat the barbell. And then the next week you add 5 more pounds, and then 5 more pounds, and then more reps and more reps. And you get closer and closer to your goal. I'm oversimplifying it, but you guys get the general idea. Like, you have to put the reps in to get to your goal. You know, it's not an overnight thing. I am friends with a few world record powerlifters, and all of them conceptualized their world records as, this is going to be a 10-year journey. This is going to be a 5-year journey. This part of like this next, like 5 pounds that I have to get is going to be 3 years of my life, just trying to get these extra 5 pounds on this lift. So let that be your barometer for what your goals are and where you want to be in your life. That it's not going to be a quick fix. You are going to fail, hopefully daily, and you're going to learn from that, and you're going to get where you need to get.
That's a great.
Love it.
Is that a good place to leave us, Nikki?
I think it's a great place.
Those are great words to close us out. Gabriel, thank you guys so much for joining us once again. Gabriel Villarreal and Heather Clift are back from Informed Consent, and we hope this is their second time. We hope that there are many more to come. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a great fun.
All the links in the show notes. Swipe over in your podcast machine, and you'll see links to all of the resources that they've mentioned, including that ebook download. We'll make that. We'll see if we can drive that to the New York Times bestseller of downloadable ebook content.
Yay!
That's a list they're going to start as a result of this. Thank you guys so much. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer and our fantastic guests, I'm Pete Wright. We'll catch you next time right here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.